Today I'm in conversation with Scott Friesen, founder of Simpletivity. It's my privilege to interview Scott, and he's been one of the most successful brand makers on YouTube as well as consulting. Well, Scott Friesen is a productivity specialist, a prolific public speaker, workshop leader, and a time management coach. He helps people to focus more time on what they want to get done and to experience less stress by simplifying their workday. As an organization, Simpletivity shares productivity tips, technology apps, time management ideas, and also more to help you get more done and enjoy less stress at the same time. So, without further ado, let's meet Scott.
Thank you very much, Anshul. It's an honor to be the first guest here on Nextgen Digital. Yeah, happy to give a bit of a summary of who I am and what I do. So as you mentioned, I run a channel here on YouTube called Simpletivity. And the main focus of the Simpletivity YouTube channel is to help people to get more done, but to enjoy less stress at the same time. And as the name may be obvious, having that word simple in the word Simpletivity, I think we can all work at our productive best when we keep things simple. So I like to highlight and show people how to get the most out of the software and the technology that they may already be using, but also to introduce people and businesses to software and technology and apps that can benefit them as a part of their day without bringing too much baggage or extra work or extra administration as a part of the way. Beyond my YouTube channel, as you mentioned, I do provide consulting. I specialize in Trello from a software perspective, but I also provide time management and personal productivity consulting and coaching, and fortunate enough to be able to speak to our community in a wide variety of ways, including at many conferences and offsite meetings, those types of things. So a little bit about me and a little bit about Simpletivity. Fantastic question. And the short answer is they came at a similar time, but maybe at a different pace. You know, I have found myself passionate about personal productivity, about time management, really about optimization for a long time. I've read a lot of books. I've tested out and studied a lot of applications and a lot of tools. And I found myself in a position about 5 years ago, in 2015, where I was working for a software company. My background is in software development and the technology sector. And although I really enjoyed my job and my role, I was coming up to about 8 years with the same organization. And that summer in particular, in fact, it was almost 5 years ago this very month, I found that it was a little bit harder to get going. I just didn't feel that I had the same drive or the same fire to put into my work. And I had this feeling, this overwhelming feeling that I should be doing something different. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it should be, but you know, there was something else waiting for me. There was a new chapter, but I just didn't know how to begin. And around that same time, I found myself watching an awful lot of YouTube, or at least a lot more YouTube than I had in the past. And so I sort of concluded that, you know, maybe what I needed was just an outlet. Maybe I just needed some way to share some of my passion, some of the things which I've learned with others. And hey, maybe if I just produce a couple of videos here and there, you know, that will suffice. Like that'll bring the energy back into my current role and into my current work. Well, what I did was later that summer in August, I decided to record a few very, very short videos. In fact, they're still up on the channel if anyone's interested in seeing those first few videos. I uploaded them on I believe it was a Wednesday, and just thought, well, we'll see what happens. Now, I certainly didn't experience great YouTube success. In fact, I didn't even experience any moderate success until about a year, almost 2 years after that event. But that's what sort of spawned my initiative to get into productivity coaching and consulting and putting more time on the Simpletivity YouTube channel. That was 5 years ago. This summer, 2015, is when the Simpletivity channel first started, August of that year. For me, a real core part of my personal productivity and what I attribute to getting the most out of my day starts the night before or the day before. And I try to follow a daily routine of spending as little as just 5, maybe 10 minutes at most, planning the day ahead. Now, I know some people like to do this at the end of their workday. I prefer to take a bit of an extended break, and I'll come back and do this at around maybe 8 p.m. in the evening. But what I like to do is I'll spend just a few minutes in a silent place. I mean, my office is fairly silent, but I'll close my eyes. I'll just try and get a few minutes of silence just to try and clear my head before I open up my calendar and determine what needs to get done tomorrow, what can be deferred, what can be delegated, what needs to be moved around. And I find having that type of perspective, being several hours prior to the start of that day, goes a long way to what I can accomplish that day. I'm not panicking. I'm not rushing to my first meeting or my first phone call of the day. Sure. I already know what's happening by taking that time. And again, it's often no more than 5 minutes. And, a big part of that is my calendar. In fact, one of my most popular, one of my most viewed videos on YouTube is all about how you can use your calendar as a to-do list. Whether you use Google Calendar or Microsoft Outlook, you can basically use any digital tool for this purpose. It's a very simple way of doing things, but I have heard feedback from thousands and thousands of my viewers and also my clients that it's helped them to simplify their day. They're not having to open up 7 different tabs on their web browser. They don't have to flip through so many different apps on their phone. They can spend much of their day looking at both their appointments, but also their tasks on the same page. And so that's what I often refer to as my productivity command center is my calendar, right? That's sort of my lowest common denominator when it comes to my tools. But I do use other tools as well. Trello, as we've mentioned before, for managing larger projects and engagements with my clients. I use things like Google Keep for note-taking. I use Evernote for a slightly different purpose, but I use Evernote as well for more reference material. But for me, that planning time is sacred time and really goes a long way to being productive for the coming 24 hours. This is where I get to look into my crystal ball and make some estimates or some predictions. It is a very interesting time and also a very exciting time because you listed a few product examples that have gotten a lot of attention in the last year or two, and Rome Research is another one that's really sort of taking off and getting a lot of excitement this past spring. We are fortunate that I think we've come to a place where the capability of the technology that we use and the capability of these apps has sort of matched in some ways the user interface or the user experience, because we didn't have to go too far back into the past where we've had a lot of capability, we've had a lot of functionality, but it wasn't always easy to handle, it wasn't always easy to manipulate, and you might have needed a background in coding or software development for it to do what you wanted it to do. But some of these tools, Notion is a really good example. If you really want to customize your experience, your feel, the workflow with a tool like Notion, you've got a lot of options there. I don't know if I can go out and call or pinpoint one particular tool that I think is going to either dominate or gain more market share than others. I think at the same time, one of the things that is maybe hampering or can always be something that deters people from trying new productivity tech is that they're already using so many tools. And you don't know how many times I encounter someone who is looking for a new solution, or at least a solution to a problem, but they're very hesitant to bring on new software because we're already using 7 or 8 applications to manage our lives or to manage our business.
Sure.
And we're often unable to retire or sunset or get rid of something that we're already using. So I think one of the key things that I always look to whenever it comes to new technology or new enhancements to existing technology is its ability to integrate. Can it integrate or speak to the other tools that you're already using, that are already giving you value and bringing you a lot of benefit? And I think for the most part, a lot of these applications spend a lot of time thinking about that and making sure that they can provide us with either the APIs or the connections so we can do so. I'll tell you that the one thing that I'm tired of hearing, and I imagine you and perhaps many of the viewers today are tired of hearing as well, is an all-in-one solution, right? The solution that can do absolutely everything. It's a fallacy. It's a myth. There's no such thing as an all-in-one solution. There are some that do multiple things and they do them quite well, but you're still going to need your email account. You're still probably going to need a standard calendaring app like Google Calendar or Microsoft Outlook. But how can these other applications integrate with what you're already using? And I think that's, whoever does that either better or does that in such a way that it's as seamless as possible, they've got a bright future ahead of them. Another thing that many people often suffer from is almost envy, or the grass is greener, whether it's a video, whether it's someone who just pulls out their phone and shows us something, and we can get very easily tempted to say, oh, well, I better do that as well. I better jump on board or try this out. And often we're looking when we don't necessarily need a better solution. So I often recommend be very clear and be very honest with yourself. What is not working? When you look at your processes, when you look at your technology, what is not working well? Make sure you can clearly define that before you start looking for a solution, because too often I find that we jump ship, or we change our options, we change our technology, and then we realize that we said goodbye to a lot of features or a lot of functionality that we really relied on. Or, sometimes, it's good to not be so tempted with what's new or what's fresh. Keep an eye into it, make sure that you know the pros and cons before making that switch. Absolutely. Yeah. Without question, these last few months has brought big changes for every one of us in a variety of different ways, sometimes unique, but in many ways they've been shared as well. So maybe a couple of things that I'd love to leave your viewers with. Number one, I would actually encourage many to schedule fewer things on a daily basis. I think one of the key causes of much of the stress we feel, especially when it comes to our work, is that we put too many things on our plate. We put too many tasks on our to-do list for today. It's good to dream big. It's good to set the bar high, but when it comes to the near term, when it comes to what you're going to do tomorrow, can you break it down to the core 2 or 3 things that you really need to get done? Because I think there's nothing that is more demotivating than finishing your day and looking at your task list and saying to yourself, you know what? I only got half of that done. I barely scratched the surface on it. I would rather, and I find that more people find the energy and find the motivation when they can knock off those first two or three things. And going back to my calendar example, sometimes I will purposely have only 3 or 4 things scheduled for today. And then when it comes to my early afternoon, I start pulling things that I have actually scheduled for tomorrow. And that's a wonderful feeling, right? It's a wonderful feeling to say, you know, I didn't even plan to do this today, but I'm doing things that I could have done tomorrow, but I'm doing them today. So try experimenting with actually scheduling fewer things on your to-do list. My second piece of advice sort of relates to procrastination, or relates to, you know, perhaps being unmotivated about what you're doing or what you need to get done. And that has to do with using a timer. Doesn't matter what you use. Doesn't matter if you use your phone, if you use a desktop timer on your computer, or even if you use some kind of kitchen or egg timer. But I find using a timer can be a great motivator and can almost gamify your work experience. You know, you think of almost any video game has some type of time component. Maybe it's a level component, but even many levels have a time component. You have to finish this level, you know, in less than 15 minutes, or you have to get through this challenge in less than 10 minutes, some type of time frame. And this is where I use a timer in my workday quite often, is I will use either a traditional Pomodoro time frame of 25 minutes. Sometimes I'll go much longer, especially if I'm starting off with a bigger task at the beginning of my day. But there's sort of the challenge built into it that you know, how much can I accomplish in the next 25 minutes? How much more can I do? And the other nice thing is, because the timer is hidden, it's not ticking, it's not visible, I can sort of get completely immersed and focused on my work until that timer goes off. And then I can reevaluate. Do I want to continue with this task, or should I move on to something else? And then maybe my third and final piece of advice goes back to something I said earlier, and really comes down to the core of both your channel and much of my channel. And that is our technology, and is to not be so tempted to switch or try something new so frequently. You know, take an inventory of what you have right now. What's working well? What do you love about the technology that you use? And you sort of have to ask that question of yourself pretty seriously, because over time you start to forget, you start to take for granted the features and the functionalities that you're getting from your current app. So take an inventory of what you love about it, but then be honest and ask yourself, where are some problem spots, or where do you see improvement? Just make sure you're very clear on both the pros and the cons before you transition, or before you start using another app. I hope some of those tips and some of the advice that I've given today can help some of your viewers and people around the globe. So congratulations again on starting your channel. All the best as you continue to provide more content, and looking forward to continuing the conversation.
So I hope you like this conversation. I will leave a few links to Scott's videos below in my description section. Please feel free to check it out. Thanks for your time, and do subscribe to our channels if you're new. Also, please do provide your feedback in the comment section on your thoughts on this interview. It will be really helpful for me. I will see you next Thursday on my next production. Until then, have a safe and productive week.